Welcome everybody to the Lavish Show. I am Shira Stallworth, and I do have a black male and a black female, and their Black Lives Matter. On this show today, we have a phenomenal panel. We're going to get right into it about Jim Crow, the effects of it, about police brutality and the effects of that. And I want you to tune in, share on Facebook, YouTube, Roku. Follow me, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Shira Stallworth, and also Creative Women Television Network. I appreciate you. I appreciate your support, and I want you to tell somebody about the Lavish Show. Welcome back, everybody, to the Lavish Show. I have some phenomenal guests on the show today. And with the current events that's taking place across the world, I brought them on the show today to speak to our audience in television land about their thoughts of what they think we should do in this current pandemic, and also with police brutality and things that's going on in our generation. And the title of the show is From Eras to Errors. Okay, so right now I just want my panel to introduce themselves and tell the audience who they are, and I'm going to start with my right.
Hello, my name is David L. Pittman Jr. with DP Photography, LLC.
Hi, I'm AnneMcMillian. I am a child advocate, education advocate, former candidate for Mississippi State Representative candidate. There are numerous tasks that I do. However, the most important is to make sure that we educate, advocate, and the things that we should for our students and children.
I'm Richard Jackson, aka Dee Jay Muhummad. I'm the owner of WGUD Studio, also the city councilman of Goshen, Mississippi.
Thank you. So you see that we have a phenomenal panel, and I want to start with Mr. Richard Jackson because I am a longtime fan of his, and I do gospel rap music. And when I was trying to get my music out, no one would play my music, and he was in the clubs DJing, and he said, I'll play your music, and he played my first gospel rap song in the club. So I will always be appreciative of that, in what you do. And not only are you a DJ, but you are a city councilman for the city of Goshen, Mississippi. So I just want you to explain to the audience, what is it that you do for your city, and are you running again, and just give them a background of who you are.
Okay, I'm Goshen homegrown, grew up in Goshen, Mississippi. One of the main things I've been doing since I've been city councilman is getting the drainage fixed, getting the streets paved. If you're down the area of Latner Road, you will see the changes that are taking place, bringing business to our city, and so forth. So those changes is taking place as well. And also I'm pushing to get more money for Baycott Park. Our park is a lot of dilapidation and things like that, and so the change is taking place. We got 1.7 million. I want to see to that the state, and I'm glad you're running for state rep, because that's one of the most important things. That's where I get the money from. Mm-hmm. So to see a change in our area, we got to go to the states for their contribution of the tax dollars that we have, and so. We got 1.7 million that's come from the city of Goshen, but we want to get more money, and I would like to see that the state at least give $1 million, but I want $2 million, so we can get up to like $3 to $4 million to really set Baycott Park out, because it's a well-needed thing. It's a good location for our city. I also, like you said, I'm a DJ. I do sound, I do studio recording and things like that. That's something I started when I was young, as a teenager. And it was just started out as a hobby and broke off into an actual job and turned it into a business. So I've been self-employed all my life. I've owned several different businesses. I went through different business such as security business, et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty much my story. Oh yeah, and I am gonna run again. So I'll run. It's in 2021. I will run again as City Councilman Ward 2 for the City of Goshen. It'll be Richard Jackson. So be looking forward to getting out and vote 2021 in the City of Goshen, Ward 2.
All right, that was Mr. Richard Jackson. Also, he's the first black councilman in the city of Goshen, Goshen, Mississippi, and I graduated from Goshen High School. So I want to switch gears here because we have some educators on the show today, and one of them is Miss AnneMcMillian. I had the privilege of working with her. She was on the show also a couple of months ago, and we was talking about the education system and things like that. So with all that's going on in the world with George Floyd and police brutality, and we look at our younger generation, what is the state of education right now in the state of Mississippi? And also, what do you think we need to be doing as educators to educate them on what's going on now?
Thank you. Great question. I will say at this point in time for the state of Mississippi, it's a state of confusion. Actually having an opportunity to get the feedback from Governor Reeves and also Dr. Carrie Wright, who's the superintendent of Mississippi Department of Education, to be able to listen to a lot of their meetings. They are oblivious to how Mississippi needs to move forward as it relates to education, remote online learning. Having been in the school system, I will tell you that the teachers are suffering tremendously, and this is from a nationwide as well as a statewide approach to it. A lot of the teachers are not familiar with online remote learning. They're used to, of course, a one-on-one type of interaction, and so it's been a little bit of a struggle with trying to get a curriculum set up, getting students online, and also making sure that they have proper equipment to be able to access those online classes. They're working through little bits of kinks and kanks in regards to it. A lot of the students that are in the Delta areas that are more heavily wooded areas, are having to deal with issues as it relates to connection to internet. And so, the recent meeting that they had was just pretty much to discuss how do we get the equipment, how do we get them to access the internet, and also be able to complete their online tasks. Now for the fall, which is 2021, starting up next school year, they're looking at kind of doing half some days in school, half some days out of school. Some of it is a continuation of remote online learning. Some of it is going to take in where they're going to have to design the classrooms where it's going to be set up for, again, social distance learning. But also setting up the classrooms to where if you're going to have students in here, how do we protect them in dealing with COVID-19?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's been a hard situation. I think more parents need to become aware of what we need to do to educate and advocate for our children in the school system. We're not doing it. We're not doing it as a whole. From speaking from an African American perspective, we're not doing it at all, period, nationally as well as internationally. Education is always at the bottom end of the totem pole. No one really wants to have that conversation. But you have generations, you have children, and we're going to have that conversation. Yeah.
I also want to ask you before I get to Mr. David Pittman, our children are the future. Do you believe that they are prepared for 21st century? Because with things going on, and the reason why I'm coming back to this is because, with all this that's going on, we'll see a lot of anger issues. We'll see a lot of issues at home when they start school back up. Do you think something need to be in place for emotional distress?
Good question. Social emotional learning. I was actually on an Ed Week, which is an educational week, workshop training on yesterday on an online call. And it was actually for social emotional learning. And again, what I enjoyed about this particular call was the fact that there were other educators that came in that spoke about the benefits, social emotional learning as it relates to adults, how to properly interact with children who are going to have psychological issues. We've been missing the point. When it comes to black males in the classroom, I will tell you, being an in-school suspension teacher, majority of the students in my classroom, which I stated to you before on one of our interviews, that's the highest count always in my room, was African American males. I would barely see African American females. I would hardly see Caucasian males or Caucasian females. It was always the abundant amount of African American males. And when you sit down and you talk to each student and you find out what's going on and you research and you look at it, you found out that they were a part of special education. They had IEPs. But the question was, why was it? They had IEPs for what? Well, they had IEPs for ADHD. And in looking at that, you further learn and you go through the process of understanding for that. You have ADHD, but yet your teachers from past up to current never properly taught you. And a lot of the ADHD was only recognized and also represented or submitted to due to the educational system, which would come from your teachers, evaluations or my preferences. I think your child needs to be on ADHD medication, not because they actually went to a neurologist who actually took the necessary tests to say, okay, I see a chemical imbalance in your child. Hey, they need to be on this particular drug. It was only because the school counselor and the teachers say, wait a minute, Raheem, you moving around too much. He was throwing a pencil. He hit Rebecca. He won't keep still. All of these things come up, revolutionized and looked at behavior as being the ultimate issue. But then when you dig further into it, you find out teacher was always missing days of attendance at school. She had poor management skills, classroom management skills. If it wasn't that, she had a low tolerance level for cultural diversity, which means I'm not used to dealing with black males. I'm not used to dealing with boys.
Right.
I'm not used to dealing with black children. I'm in a predominantly African American school district. So by dealing with those issues, Raheem would get referrals, won't behave, kicking other students, impulsivity, and he would get thrown into my classroom. It was then when I found out it has nothing to do with that. Let's dig deeper. He's illiterate. He doesn't know his phonics. He can't write. You're embarrassing him. You're making him feel low.
Right.
Self-esteem issues.
Right.
No type of social emotional learning, going backwards and forwards with each other.
Right.
I wasn't trying to respect you in my classroom. Instead, I was belittling you. So when we really started getting into that part of the aspect of what's going on educationally wise, the question becomes, moving forward, as we've dealt with COVID-19, how do we deal with coming back into an institution where students have been out majority of the school year.
Right.
They have not received the necessary education or follow-up in training. How do we get back with the teachers in a system where nothing was already working from the get-go? How do we move forward from there?
Right.
And the easy, simple task in regards to that is you got to pull more parents involved in what's going on. We have got to get more African American parents to become involved in what's going on.
Exactly.
And we got to get those legislators and those educators from the Department of Education to understand that you don't make a decision without the consent of the parent.
Right.
You need to get the feedback from the parent. What can we do to better help your son in school?
Right.
They're not doing it.
Right.
They're not doing it.
Right. Thank you, Miss Anna, for sharing that with us, because, people need to know that. They need to hear that about their children and, dealing with things that's going on now in the school system. A lot of it's ridiculous because we don't want to educate the teachers or require them to go back to get more education, and then we hear ADHD all the time. And that's something that's big in our Black community. If the child is misbehaving, it's more of a behavioral issue, but we're not worried about the academics, and getting them on track. So I appreciate that and everything that you said. So fast forward, we have another person that I want to recognize. I knew this man when I was working several businesses. He would come into the shop, want to be of help, things like that. He started with me with the Lavish Show, and he's one of my first producers that started my show with just an old camera, and recording me, and we was doing things, to kind of get the word out to the community. He goes by the name of Mr. David Pittman, and I had him on the show before because he was telling me about, things in the prison system and with the young Black man and things like that. But I do want to share this. When I was 11 years old, I have always been around white people all my life. My Caucasian brothers and sisters. My mother is from New York. She's very diversified, around Italians, Puerto Ricans, white, Blacks, Mexican, Chinatown. My dad's from Alabama, raised in Detroit a lot, so I come from a very diversified family. So racism wasn't a big issue, that I faced. But, when I was 11 years old, my mother said, I want you to see a movie. And I was like, okay. She showed me the movie Roots. And when she showed me Roots, I was like, okay, I'm going back to school all hype. If a white person come up to me, I'm like, okay, what? I was ready to fight. But she didn't show it to me to have anger. She showed it to me so I can have an educational epiphany, so I can wake up to who I was as a person, and know the world that we are living in. So that brings me back to Mr. David Pittman. You did a thing called Black Lives Matter back in 2015, I believe. And Miss Anna, you was there. Who else was there? Mr. Richard Jackson and some other people. And I did not know in 2020 we'll be here on this panel. So God works in mysterious ways. It's amazing. And I didn't even know you like that, And I just came with my little table, set up my music CDs. But when I tell you he did a great job putting this Black Lives Matter on, and I want you to discuss, with the audience today, how did that come about? And then, tell us, what are you working on now? And, what's going on with David Pittman?
First off, I just want to thank God for allowing me to live another day, for giving me another opportunity to surrender my will to him. Thank you for allowing me to be on the show. And I thank you, brother and sister, once again, we sit together for participating. What I have going on right now, of course, I am the owner of DP Photography, LLC, my own studio located in St. Martin, Mississippi on Lemoyne Boulevard. And eventually we're slated to become a full-scale media outlet. In regards as to how the Black Lives event that I had came about is very similar to how this panel has assembled and how many other organizations are forming right now to fight for the total liberation of Black people. The thing is that when the people have been so far down in the dust and you've been smothered out and we've had someone's knee on our neck for more than 300 plus years, a breaking point is established and people begin to say enough is enough. That's where we are. That's the reason why I did what I did. And that's the reason why I do what I continue to do. When Sister Anna was explaining the travesty of the school system, it took me back to when I was a child and how they treated me in Gaucher Elementary, Gaucher Junior High, and Pascagoula High School. They didn't have a clue as to how to relate to young Black males. They didn't even have a clue as to really how to educate Black children. So, now we're at a point and we ask ourselves, what can we do and what should we be doing? The protesting is good. That's very good. But now we have to mobilize our people. For those who are eligible to vote, they have to become registered to vote if they're not voting, or if they're not registered. then they have to go to the polls and vote, but it doesn't stop right there. If you are qualified to run for a public office, whether it's a city councilman, an alderman, a mayor, if you're dissatisfied with the current judges that run Jackson or Harrison County, if you're qualified, stop talking about you're dissatisfied and you're frustrated with the system and get up and run against those who are currently in office.
Right.
You know, it's one thing to sit and talk, but it's another thing to get up and make something happen. Mm-hmm. And see, that's where we are right now. You know, I'm glad the sister's running, and I'm glad brother's going to rerun. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. People that we have elected into office that can't show what they have actually done for us as black people. And I'm not talking about everybody, and that does not make me a racist or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But it's time to do something for us because we have been loyal to them.
That's right.
We got to take them out of office and put somebody in office that's going to stand for us. Mm-hmm. No more foolishness, no more games. Getting in office and you do everything for everybody else and you don't do anything for us. Mm-hmm. It's time to eliminate those type of people, punish them at the polls and take them completely out of office and put somebody in the office that's going to work for us. If we're going to put you in office, we want to know what your agenda is for us. Or collectively, we're going to band together and create an agenda to submit to you what we need done. And if you say that you can't do that, then guess what? We're not going to put you in office. We're going to put somebody else in office. That's where we stand right now. You know, the thing, the people, they breaking stuff, they doing all this violence. Well, I must admit to you, I'm not for violence, for the sake of violence, but when somebody comes after you, God has given you the right to defend yourself. Mm-hmm. And Martin Luther King said that violence is the language or the communication of the unheard. Mm-hmm. When people have exhausted their remedies in the system and they cannot get justice, the only thing they know how to do is commit violence because these people don't value life, they value property. Mm-hmm. It was the same thing when the United States was established by the colonists. They exhausted their remedies. And when the Brits would not hear them, what did they resort to? Mm-hmm. They resorted to violence. And that's how we live in this nation that they call the United States of America that was established. So now that the violence has happened, now we need to stop the violence. We need to take some of this anger and frustration and take it to the polls. Mm-hmm. That's how we mobilize. Mm-hmm. We need people like this sister and this brother in office. Mm-hmm. And those that have been in office playing games that's currently in office, especially with that sister, that position that sister is running for, take them out. Because he ain't doing nothing for the people. That sister over in Harrison County that's not doing anything for the people. Take her out and replace her with somebody that's going to do something for our people. Because it's time for us to rise. It's time for us to stop begging and sitting at somebody else's feet, waiting for crumbs or waiting for handouts. Those times are over. This is the time to rise, and we must rise now.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman. Right now, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to get into some heavy hitters such as Jim Crow laws, police brutality. How do we go from, eras of discrimination, civil rights, and things like that to era ending up with someone's knee on someone's neck, committing murder across the world, with police brutality. So we'll be back. Welcome back to the Lavish Show. We have a phenomenal panel. As I said before, we have the first black councilman of Goshen, Mississippi, Mr. Richard Jackson, also known as Dee Jay Muhummad. We also have parent, community, advocate, activist, educator, Miss AnneMcMillian. We also have business owner, activist, Mr. David Pittman. I really, truly appreciate y'all being on the show today. And I just want to get into, the Jim Crow era. We didn't have the right to vote, as equal rights to our Caucasian brothers and sisters. If we went to vote, once they passed the Voting Rights Act, we had to count or say a number, how many seeds in a watermelon, or, do some ridiculous act in order to vote. Segregation in schools. You couldn't drink out the same water fountain. You couldn't eat in the same place. There were sit-ins, Dr. Martin Luther King and all the people on the front line. It brings us back to all that. And I want to start with you, Miss Anna, about the effects of the Jim Crow era on our black youth today. What type of effects do you think, is affecting them now from that era?
Well, as you can currently see with the current protests that are going on, it's the millennials, it's the younger generation that have said enough is enough. They are not going to deal with what we've actually dealt with and what our grandparents and their grandparents have actually dealt with. They don't understand because they've been more socialized into what a lot of things that we see here in society. And what I mean by socialization, it's what we saw as being more respect and admiration for our culture and our race. Now it's more of a melting pot. We agree with everything. Our children don't know where the respect line of loyalty as it relates to this is who I am. I'm a black woman. I'm a black man. I respect that. I respect my community. I respect where I come from and my history of it. Now it's more cultural diversity where this is my friend, this is her friend, we all live in one melting pot. However, society in America says that's something completely different. We still haven't dealt with the issue within the Constitution where black people are still considered 1/3 of a human being. We still haven't ratified or actually terminated that part within the Constitution on that. So when we talk about Jim Crow, there's a lot of errors and issues that we need to actually work on and get rid of, abolish, take out, and actually change in order to make it better. For our children now, they're not going to deal with it. That's why you're seeing the riots.
Right.
That's why you're seeing the looting. But also to remember, and I wanted to say this because I heard Brother David mention about it, which is a lot of the riots and the looting. Let's not get confused that a lot of it are white supremacist members and groups and underpaid, undercover white officers that are actually staging and doing a lot of the looting and the rioting to a point to where the image of Black Lives Matter, BLM, is the overall representation, but it makes African Americans look like we're thugs, we're thieves, we're destroyers, we're destructive. And more is coming out in the news, wait a minute, no, it's not BLM. We have individuals that's been paid by the government. So that's a different topic. That's a more conversed and in-depth topic to talk about. But, when we talk about Jim Crow again, there hasn't been too much of a change. It's actually still where it is. And so we can get more in-depth in detail when we talk about special education, which is one of it. Wow. We can talk about discipline, expulsion. We can talk about suspension as it relates to our children within the public school system, and also charter schools that completely and totally make sure that they keep our children out of their schools. So thank you so much for asking that. That's really
Thank you, Miss Anna, for that. And like I said, we have to put the right people in position. Basically, with me running for mayor in 2021, I want people to know when you see this panel, you see me. I have a lot of people that I just respect, that I love, even, Mr. Richard Jackson, being the first black councilman, I want to talk to you about the economics of the Black lives. What are the economics? How, where are we today? Even with me, coming up in the city of Morris Point, with this city that we're in, and you're in Gaucher, a diverse community. What are your takes or your stand, with the Black economics?
Thank you. One of the things that are most important is the economics in the black community. So that's one of the top subjects. And the reason why is because we can get respect when we own the business, when we have the finance. So if your politicians or police officers are out of line, they're going to give you the respect when you have the wealth. The wealth of the community is truly the ones that runs the community. So we had to position ourselves to be financially stable in the black community by owning business. That's number one. We got to own business. I know this might not sound right, but I'm just telling you, buy the politician. We don't care. We just play the game how it goes. If it's a politician not in our favor, we buy a politician that will be in our favor. If that's the game how it goes, so play the game how it goes and win. So, most of the politicians that are elected, they're getting funded by somebody and they are going along with that business because that business is giving contributions to this politician. So we have to come in financial control. So no matter what, by any means, like Malcolm said, we got to, by any means, become in a financial control. One of the things is that they utilize against us, our own tax dollars. They'll use it to give contracts to other people, to their friends, a good old boy system. So I see it all the time when I'm up at the city council board, and I know what's going on. Even though no matter what I say, it's not going to change until we take full affirmative action towards these issues. One of the issues that I addressed, I said we don't have enough minority, and I don't like to use the word minority, but I'm just saying it for now. We don't have enough minority or African Americans contractors within the city of Goshen. If you look on the board, like you said, I'm the first black to, and I say black, so that's just my term. I'm the first black to be in office. As you can see, I'm the only one on that board. So it's a lot of unequal that goes on because they don't know no better. So we have to show them better. So I address those issues, but I have to show them. So I'm not gonna go on. I know I'm running out of time, but I just wanted to address those little small issues that with the economics, and that we have to become financially stable and in control of our economics in our community.
Right. And also teach our children how to become economically stable, right? Thank you for that, Mr. Richard Jackson. And on to Mr. David Pittman. Police brutality. When is enough is enough? All videos have shot across Facebook about, cops doing certain things, killing our black people, killing the brown and the black people and things like that. What are your takes on all that's going on and with this generation coming up that's saying enough is enough?
That's a good question. As Brother Richard mentioned about what goes on in the city council, as I stated earlier, one of the main things that we have to do is we have to put our own people in office. The last time that there was an election, the city of Goshen had at least three other African Americans that ran. One was running for councilman at large, and one ran for another ward or district. The thing is, they lost by 2 or 3%. Okay, now just a scenario: if both of them would have won, how many people on the city council, brother?
We have 6.
Okay.
Counting the mayor, the 7, I think it's 7. Yeah, 7.
Okay, so if we would have had 3 African Americans or blacks on the city council, that means that when there are issues that affect our community or ill affect our community coming from the police department, now we can sit down and talk. Because, see, we got just as many as them. You see what I'm saying? On our side.
Right.
Because the policies that make a police department run come from the mayor's office and the city council, depending on what form of government you have in your city. So, as they say, defund the police. I'm not with abolishing the police, but if a police department has to be restructured because there's so much hate and so much crookedness in there, then you have to abolish that whole department and create it from the ground up. How are you going to do that if you don't have anyone on the city council that represents you? Like that brother Richard is the only one on the city council. If we had a credible issue in Gaucher right now, there's not much the brother can do because he is the only one. So that's why I recommend, in order to stop this, we have to start running for public office. And like the brother was saying, and I want to just clarify something. Like Anna said, there was a lot of people that was out there that was rioting, that they were paid people by the government. What the brother was talking about when he said, buy your politician, he wasn't talking about anything crooked, going in closed doors. What he was saying was this right here. As I said earlier, we have to fund them. We have to finance campaigns for those that stand for us. And then guess what? If we put a judge in office, the former judges that have been giving brothers and sisters who had drug problems 30 years, 50 years, not knowing the underlying cause, like the sister was talking about the schools and our children. They just say, oh, I'm going to send your child to put them on Ritalin or whatever the drug is, without making a proper diagnosis. So you see, so that's what we have to do. In order to take control of our communities, we have to put people in office that stand for us. So if you believe that you are qualified to run, don't be scared.
That's right.
Run. And if you run on the will of the people, we're going to back you up.
That's right.
Because people are sick and tired of putting people in office that's not going to do anything for us.
That's right.
That's how you stop police brutality.
Thank you, Mr. David Pittman. I appreciate all of y'all being here. We do have one question from the audience, and maybe two. So we're going to get to that right now. We have a question from the audience.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Antonio Kennard, and I want to know, how am I supposed to act when I'm stopped by police?
That's a good question, Jonathan. A lot of things that we have tried has not worked. However, what I recommend, if you're in a vehicle, what you want to do is already have your license already out in a place that you can safely reach it. Go ahead and just put your hands on the steering wheel and just look straight ahead. And when the officer approaches you at the door of the car, tell him, sir, my license is right here. Can I give it to you? And when he says yes, hand him the license. If you're on foot and they approach you, just go ahead and just put your hands in the air and just allow him to do as he pleases. Because if you do anything else, you might get killed.
Good question, Jonathan. I would tell you, if you're on foot, again, like Brother David just mentioned, just stop where you are, comply with what he's saying. Of course, again, you don't have anyone else there around, and so you don't want to adrenaline increase in that situation. If you're in a vehicle and you're being pulled over, pull out your necessary registration, put it on your dash. Put your hands on top of the dash, and when he asks you about your proof of registration, he can go into your car on your dash and pull it out from there. Let them do it.
Right. Well, they pretty much covered most of the grounds of what to do. One of the things that's important, again, is that you don't get aggressive. You don't want any aggression to get started. Learn how to talk down all the aggression. So, and put it in your mind, you have to understand, as a young black male, you are a target in society today. So you have to be careful and make sure that you don't do anything that will cause aggression to get stirred up in the conversation.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Celia Jackson. I'm from Gaucher, Mississippi, and Richard Jackson is my father. But I do have a question. How can we guarantee by filling up certain slots in politics that we can actually still have our voices be heard and not still be placed on the back burner?
That's a good question, Celia. As I stated earlier, one thing we want to do is we want to give the person that's running for us, we want to finance that person, and we want to give that person an agenda. And if that person does not comply, then we take that person out of office. There's no way to just strictly guarantee that somebody's going to do what they're supposed to do. We've seen that in the past. But the way we start a new trend is when they don't comply, we punish them at the polls on the next cycle. So those that see that, we'll use them as an example of what to do and what not to do?
Good question, beautiful. I would say in regards to the political aspect, is always to make sure that our politicians are held accountable. An outline agenda is what we should have went in with initially in the beginning. For any candidate that we are going to finance, we need to make sure that there is an agenda that we all can agree upon within the community. These are the things that we see that need to occur and happen for the benefit of our people here in the community. And at the same time, if they do not act upon the agenda that we have set aside for them, then this is the time that we need to become boisterous and go to those city council meetings and express, these are the things that you stated, that we agreed upon, that you're supposed to do, you're not doing it, and hold them accountable for it.
All right, that's a great question. Pretty much they covered a lot of grounds as every time when it finally gets to me. But you know, I've noticed in most candidate situations, especially even as the president's candidate election, most of them are funded by large corporations. So the corporations pretty much have a lot of say-so. And even though they may go against the corporation in certain aspects, they're still supported by the corporation, and they know that re-electing or further funding, because you know, election, you have all kinds of ways to get funded for the support of your campaign. Even if as you're in position, there are certain fundings that you need donated to your to help you throughout the your term. Like right now, I got Baycott Park. I need funding, but because I don't have too many people that's funding me, I have to fight for what I need. So those things are ways that you can hold them accountable for, and that's why David was saying if we're funding these politicians, and which is I said if we're buying them out, you know what I'm saying? That's just a term that I'm using. It's not the illegal way. You're pretty much funding each politician, and it's legal to do that to donate to their campaign. But that is pretty much the most powerful way to get them to go along with your program or agenda is funding.
Thank you, audience, for giving us those fantastic questions for our panel. I just want to leave the audience with this today. Then we'll hear from our panelists with closing remarks. The Bible says to love your neighbor as yourself, and also treat people the way you want to be treated. In this life that we live in today, there are choices. You either choose good or the bad. I just want you to know that you are an individual and you have a voice to make a difference. And I stand for justice and I stand for equality. And I want to hear from my panelists as they close out the show on what they have to say to the audience.
Okay, in closing remarks, you know, I'm running again next year in June. I think it's in June, the election, 2021. Make sure you get out and vote. And you know, my message to our community is to try your best not to run against each other. We need to team up together and work together as a team. So we got to strive this season of elections to strive to not run against each other, to try to find a way to implement a way that we can work together as a team.
I would just like to say that we need to encourage our children more to become more active in what is taking place for their future. I believe that our parents, our community as a whole is at this point of where we're needing to heal. In order to do that, we're going to have to face the truth. We're going to have to deal with the issues that we know have been lacking within our own families, within our own community, in order to make it better for our future generation. So again, I just want to say I thank you so much for this. It was very dynamic. Thank you.
In the book of Ecclesiastes, it says that there's a time for everything. This is the time to unify. If you notice, when Jesus started off his mission, he didn't start off alone. He had to go get a team. And as Brother Richard was saying, this is not you can't do this by yourself. We have to do this as a team. We have to band together. If you're not registered to vote and you're eligible, you need to register to vote. And then when it's time to vote, you need to go and vote. And I cannot emphasize this enough. If you are qualified to run for a position, run for a position. We don't need to be running against each other. We need to be uniting in this time. This is a dire situation. In order for us to change things, we have to take control of these local governments, or we have to become at least part of the majority on these local governments. Voting for the federal elections, that's good, but the most beneficial way to change things is for us to vote local.
Thank each and every one of y'all. God bless. Happy Father's Day to you too. What's coming up? My sister. God bless y'all. Thank you.
Committee films.
All right. Excellent.
Yeah, you see, he lifts you up, even though I let you down. I know we're not perfect, but I know that we're heaven bound. If you're betting on me, better play another round. I'm an ace of the kings, you better double down. We never fall for nothing, I know our hearts are real. You're a diamond without the club and the cars and deals. Yeah, you know my past really bothers me, but you hold me down. You're a solid queen, come to home to cooking like you're Paula Deen, whipping up them hash browns and them collard greens. Pardon me, but I solemnly swear my autumn leaves keep falling in love, and I'm not a legend, you got all of me. Even with all this poverty, I'm not the one with the riches, but I guarantee that you can get all of my offerings. You never shut me out, just like Obama's key. We hit that war room, and then I agree. I got you in my life, promise I won't fuss or fight. Baby, I got you, I got you, I got you in my life. Baby, I got you in my life, promise I won't fuss or fight. Baby, I got you, I got you, I got you in my life.
You know the enemy tries to come between me and Dee, but I'm holding on to memories that will never leave. All the time stress and wonder why our life is catastrophic. Maybe Hurricane Katrina left us in a war zone, but I got love for my baby. The way you hold me make me feel mean, you drive me crazy. On my knees praying, hoping God will save our souls. Until the end of time, drop of a dime, my love is gold. When I bankrupt, you always hold me down. Every time I look around, you were by my side. What's a queen to do without a royal king? You complete me with all God's majesty. Now I'm holding on to our destiny, hoping this will be a Natalie Cole symphony. This will be a reality. You know what it is. It's our anniversary. It's our anniversary. It's our anniversary. Baby, I got you in my life. Promise I won't fuss or fight. Baby, I got you. I got you. I got you in my life. Baby, I got you in my life. Promise I won't fuss or fight. Baby, I got you. I got you. I got you in my life. She's your queen to be, a queen to be forever, a queen to do whatever his highness desires. She's your queen to be, your queen to be. mothers and fathers who lost children to gang, prison, and violence. Whatever happened to the prayer in the school? Overseas now, ski mask and gun violence do what? Virginia Tech, Columbine, Colorado is proof of a dying breed, and that's the truth. Whatever happened to the preachers on the corner, preaching out Romans 10:9 that'll save ya, preaching salvation to the Jews and the pimps. So many political figures just make me sick. Message, the real message isn't hiding on the scene, trying to make a dollar off the resurrected seed. Abomination infiltrations, what you see through the media and your TV screen. From my block to your block, we are here to stay. Jesus all day, every day we pray for a change to come. He's the only way to escape the pain of yesterday. From my block to your block, we are here to stay. Jesus all day, every day we pray for a change to come. He's the only way to escape the pain of yesterday. How can you face the real judgment of the Lord? His mercy endures forever and there's no fall. Blessing is the message for the lost and found. The devil be defeated by his own cause. Blessing, it is a blessing to the one on the street who looks up to the Father to supply his needs. No more lonely days and sleepless nights will all be evaporated in the glory light word. The glory comes and fills your heart with the power of his presence like a consuming fire, burning up your flesh to take you higher into the Father's arms, Jehovah Jireh. Don't ever hesitate to fall on your knees, giving God the glory every time you breathe. Life is a blessing and it's all you need. Give your life to Christ and you will see. From my block to your block, we are here to stay. Jesus all day, every day we pray for a change to come. He's the only way to escape the pains of yesterday. From my block to